You won't believe what happened to Cher. Dubbed the goddess of pop and an Oscar-winning actress, her 80-year life was nonetheless a series of tragedies and uncontrollable upheavals. Her soul was torn apart by toxic relationships, devastating collapses, and wounds that never healed. There are dark corners of her life. The more you touch them, the more chilling they become. This is Cher's tragic, real-life story. Cheryl Sarkeesian was born on May 20th, 1946, in El Centro, California, into a life already steeped in chaos and heartbreak. Her father, John Sarkeesian, an Armenian-American truck driver plagued by drug addiction and gambling problems, was rarely present. Her mother, Georgia Holt, a beautiful model and actress, was left to raise her alone. The marriage collapsed when Cher was only 10 months old. Before disappearing from their lives, her father did something cruel. He placed baby Cheryl in a Catholic orphanage for several months. Georgia was allowed to visit just once a week, but only permitted to see her daughter through a thick glass window. Both mother and child found the experience deeply traumatic. I remember my mother standing there crying on the other side of the glass, Cher would later recall with pain in her voice. Life after that became a constant whirlwind of instability. Georgia married 7 times in total, dragging her daughters through one turbulent relationship after another. They moved constantly between New York, Texas, and California, often living in cheap apartments and barely making ends meet. There were weeks they survived on canned beans and stew. Cher remembered being so poor that she had to hold her worn-out shoes together with rubber bands. "We were so broke," she once said. "I'd go to school with rubber bands around my shoes so the soles wouldn't fall off." Despite the hardship, young Cher already carried a burning dream inside her. She was going to be famous. She idolized screen legends like Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Marlene Dietrich, Bette Davis, and Katharine Hepburn. But as a dark-haired girl, she felt there was no one in Hollywood who looked like her. In the Walt Disney cartoons, all the witches and evil queens were really dark, she later confessed. There was nobody I could look at and think, that's who I'm like. By 5th grade, she was already organizing a class performance of the musical Oklahoma, even taking on the male roles when the boys refused to participate. Her voice was unusually low and powerful for a little girl. At school, she stood out, creative, witty, and bold. She once wore a midriff-bearing top that shocked her classmates. While other kids dreamed of weekend beach parties, Cher was somewhere else in her mind. "I was never really there," she admitted years later. "I was always thinking about when I was grown up and famous." School was a struggle. She suffered from undiagnosed dyslexia, which made reading and writing extremely difficult. Her report cards were a mess of D's, F's, and occasional A's. Teachers wrote that she wasn't living up to her potential. Deep down, Cher felt unattractive and untalented, yet the fire to become a star never went out. "I couldn't think of anything else I could do," she said honestly. "I just thought, I'll be famous. That was my goal." Unable to find her place in the traditional education system and burning with an unstoppable determination to become a star, Cher made a bold and life-changing decision at just 16 years old. In 1963, during her 11th grade year, she dropped out of school and left her mother's home for good. With nothing but a dream and very little money, she moved to Los Angeles. She took acting classes during the day and supported herself by dancing in nightclubs along the famous Sunset Strip at night. She wasn't shy about approaching anyone who might help her, performers, managers, or agents. It was there, in November 1962, that she crossed paths with Salvatore "Sonny" Bono. a 27-year-old songwriter and record promoter who was 11 years older than her. After being kicked out by her roommates, Cher accepted Sonny's offer to move in with him, initially as his housekeeper. Their relationship began as purely platonic and professional, but things changed quickly. Sonny introduced her to legendary producer Phil Spector, who used her deep, powerful contralto voice as a backup singer on hits like The Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', and the Ronettes' Be My Baby. He even produced her very first solo single, Ringo, I Love You, released under the name Bonnie Jo Mason in 1964. Many radio stations rejected it, mistakenly thinking a man, possibly a gay man, singing to Ringo Starr was behind the unusually low female voice. By 1965, Cher and Sonny had become much more than friends. They fell in love, held an unofficial wedding ceremony in a Tijuana hotel room, and transformed into the folk-pop duo Sonny and Cher. Their breakthrough came with the iconic hit I Got You, Babe, a tender, timeless ode to young love against all odds. The song perfectly captured the spirit of 1960s youth culture and propelled them to international superstardom almost overnight. I sang to the audience through him, Cher later admitted about her early stage fright. I would look at Sonny because I was so nervous. Following that massive success, they released more hits, including Baby Don't Go and The Beat Goes On. Encouraged by their musical fame, they tried their luck in Hollywood with the 1967 comedy Good Times. But the film was both a critical and commercial disappointment. Desperate to recover, they poured much of their earnings into another movie called Chastity, a serious drama written and produced by Sonny as a starring vehicle for Cher. Sadly, Chastity also failed miserably at the box office, pushing the couple to the edge of financial ruin. As musical taste shifted toward heavier psychedelic rock, their light folk-pop style began to feel outdated. Struggling with mounting debts, Sonny and Cher reinvented themselves as a nightclub act in Las Vegas. Their show mixed music with sharp comedy, especially Cher's deadpan, witty put-downs of Sonny. That unique blend of humor and music became their salvation. The turning point came when their Vegas lounge act caught the attention of television executives. In 1971, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour premiered and quickly became a major ratings hit, bringing them back into the spotlight stronger than ever. However, by the following year, the fairy tale began to crack. Despite both Sonny and Cher engaging in extramarital affairs, Sonny's constant womanizing became too much for Cher to bear. One woman, or even 5, was never enough for him, she later said with bitterness. They chose to stay married for business reasons, keeping up the illusion of a happy couple while their personal lives grew increasingly complicated. Some of Sonny's other women even lived with them in the same house. In a private diary entry dated August 21, 1973, Sonny wrote coldly, "My public wife is still Cher. In order to maintain all the things I want right now, that's the way it has to be." By 1974, the pressure of living a lie became unbearable. Cher finally demanded a divorce, citing involuntary servitude as one of the reasons. The divorce was finalized in 1975. After years of letting Sonny control their business affairs, Cher walked away from the marriage virtually penniless and deeply in debt to her ex-husband. It was the painful end of both their personal and professional partnership. Many predicted Cher would fade away without Sonny. Even Sonny himself told her, "America will hate you, and you won't have a job." But Cher refused to be broken. After the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour ended, she took a huge risk and launched her own solo variety show simply called Cher. To everyone's surprise, including Sonny's, it became a massive hit. Audiences loved her even more when she stood alone in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Sonny launched his own competing show, the Sonny Comedy Review, but it struggled badly and was canceled after just one season. The contrast was painfully clear. Yet Cher's music career during this time was struggling badly. Her 1975 album Stars stalled at a dismal number 153 on the Billboard 200. The follow-up, I'd Rather Believe in You, 1976, performed even worse and failed to chart at all. Her 1977 album Cherished suffered the same fate. She also teamed up with Southern rocker Gregg Allman for the album To the Hard Way, another commercial disappointment. By 1978, Cher had hit rock bottom professionally. Warner Brothers decided to drop her recording contract. It was one of the darkest periods of her career. The woman who had once ruled television and pop charts now found herself fighting for survival once again. But deep inside, that same stubborn fire that had carried her out of poverty and orphanages as a child was still burning. The queen of comebacks was about to rise once more. However, the most dramatic and heartbreaking chapter of Cher's personal life was still to come. Just 4 days after her divorce from Sonny Bono was finalized in June 1975, Cher did something that shocked everyone. She married Gregg Allman, the hard-living Southern rocker and co-founder of the Allman Brothers Band. They had only been dating for a few months, but the attraction was intense and impulsive. The honeymoon barely lasted 9 days. Cher quickly discovered the dark reality behind Allman's rock star lifestyle. His struggles with heroin addiction and heavy alcoholism were far worse than she had imagined. She filed for divorce just 9 days after the wedding, unable to handle the chaos. "He was so high he didn't even understand me when I told him I was leaving," Cher later recalled with deep sadness. Yet the story wasn't over. Allman promised to get clean, and a month later they reconciled, but the marriage remained incredibly turbulent. Allman's battles with addiction continued, creating constant tension and heartbreak in their home. The situation grew even more complicated when Cher decided to reunite with Sonny Bono professionally for the Sonny and Cher show in 1976. Allman felt betrayed and filed for divorce. It was only when he learned Cher was pregnant with Elijah Blue that he backed down and agreed to stay married, at least on paper. In July 1976, Cher gave birth to their son, Elijah Blue Allman. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might make it work. However, Cher, who had been somewhat sheltered from the wilder side of the music business by Sonny and later David Geffen, was completely unprepared for the raw, destructive world Allman brought into her life. The couple finally divorced for good in 1979. Years later, in 2017, Gregg Allman lost his long battle with liver cancer and passed away at age 69. Cher posted a simple, emotional message: "Words are impossible." Through all the turmoil, one beautiful thing remained: their son, Elijah Blue Allman. Despite the broken marriage and the pain, Cher poured her love into raising him while continuing to fight for her own career. With her recording career struggling in the early 1980s, Cher made a brave and strategic decision to focus on acting. In 1983, she landed a supporting role in the powerful drama Silkwood, starring alongside Meryl Streep and Kurt Russell. The film told the true story of Karen Silkwood, a nuclear plant whistleblower. It received strong critical acclaim and respectable box office returns. Cher's performance was a revelation, raw, honest, and deeply moving. She earned both a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. It was a major turning point that proved she was far more than just a singer. She continued to impress with strong dramatic roles in Mask, 1985, and Suspect, 1987, showing impressive range and depth. But her greatest cinematic triumph came in 1987 with the romantic comedy Moonstruck. Cher delivered a sparkling, heartfelt performance that won her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Standing on that stage, accepting the Oscar, she had officially become a respected dramatic actress. However, just as her film career was reaching new heights, a serious health crisis struck. While filming The Witches of Eastwick in 1987, Cher contracted the Epstein-Barr virus. The full impact hit her later. For nearly 2 years, she was too ill to work. Her health deteriorated badly, and she even developed pneumonia. She had to turn down numerous movie offers, leaving her frustrated and heartbroken. "I was really upset about it," she told the New York Times. "When I came back, I had to work my way up from the beginning again." Meanwhile, her ex-husband, Sonny Bono, was also going through a major life change. By the late 1980s, his entertainment career had faded without Cher by his side. In 1988, he made a surprising pivot and successfully ran for mayor of Palm Springs, California. He later won a seat in the U.S. Congress in 1994 as a Republican representative. The former pop star had reinvented himself as a conservative politician. Tragically, Sonny's new chapter was cut short. On January 5, 1998, while vacationing in Aspen, Colorado, he died in a skiing accident at age 62. The news shocked the world and hit Cher especially hard. She immediately flew from London to Los Angeles to be with the family. At Sonny's funeral, Cher delivered a deeply emotional eulogy through tears. She credited him with transforming her from a shy, introverted 16-year-old girl into one half of the most beloved entertainment duo of their generation. "He had the vision," she said, acknowledging that Sonny was the creative force behind Sonny and Cher. Despite all the pain, the divorces, and the years of bitterness, Cher paid heartfelt respect to the man who had changed her life forever. Though Cher has risen from the ashes and overcome tragedy time and again, the deepest wound she has never healed is the pain of being a mother to her 2 children, especially her youngest son, Elijah Blue Allman. With Sonny, she had Chaz. His journey of transition tested Cher in ways she never expected. She was afraid of losing the child she had known and loved. "I didn't go through it that easily," she confessed years later. "There was a real fear of losing the child I loved. But in the end, love won." Cher became one of Chaz's strongest supporters, and their relationship grew into something beautiful and honest. But it is Elijah, the son she had with Greg Allman in 1976, whose story has broken her heart over and over again in the most devastating way. From a very young age, Elijah felt the absence of a normal childhood. Sent away to boarding school when he was only 7, he later spoke about the deep sense of abandonment he carried. "When you go to boarding school at 7 years old," he said in a raw interview, "it's kind of hard to feel like you're not being shunned." That early wound never fully healed. As he grew older, Elijah fell into a dark spiral of severe mental health struggles and crippling drug addiction. The pattern became painfully familiar and heartbreaking to watch. Every time he received money from his father's trust, his only real source of income, it would disappear almost instantly on drugs, luxury hotels, limousines, and chaos. He has been thrown out of countless hotels after screaming obscenities, acting erratically, and leaving behind thousands of dollars in damage. Cigarette burns in carpets, broken windows, destroyed furniture. There were overdoses, emergency room visits, and terrifying moments when he was found passed out in the middle of traffic, saved only by Narcan. By early 2026, at the age of 49, Elijah's life had deteriorated to a terrifying new low. After a series of arrests in New Hampshire on charges including burglary, criminal mischief, and assault, he was placed in a locked psychiatric hospital. The boy Cher once held in her arms had become a man trapped in a nightmare of addiction and mental illness. Heartbroken and desperate to protect him, Cher filed for conservatorship over his estate once again. In court documents, she described her son as gravely disabled, saying he had no concept of money and was unable to manage his financial resources. She painted a devastating picture of the cycle. Whenever Elijah gets money, he checks into expensive hotels, buys drugs until it's gone, ends up in the hospital or overdosing, and leaves behind a trail of destruction that friends and family have to clean up. Cher revealed he owes huge sums in unpaid taxes, has massive hotel debts, and has even borrowed money from friends to pay off dangerous drug dealers who tracked him down. For Cher, now 79 years old, this has been an endless mother's nightmare. She has watched her beautiful boy, the child born during one of the most turbulent times in her life, slowly destroy himself. She has tried everything a mother could try: love, tough love, private agreements, and now legal protection. Through it all, the fear never leaves her. The fear that one day the drugs, the chaos, or the illness will take him for good. Despite all her own pain, Cher has never stopped fighting for both her children. She supported Chaz through his deepest personal journey, and she continues to fight for Elijah, even as his struggles tear her heart apart. In the end, behind the glamorous costumes, the Oscar wins, the sold-out tours, and the immortal voice that gave the world Believe, Cher remains a mother who has known more private heartbreak than most people could ever imagine. Her story is not just one of comebacks and triumph. It is also one of a woman who has spent decades trying to save her children while the whole world watched her shine. Final thoughts. I can't help but think of Rob Reiner's tragedy while making this video. I hope all the best comes her way. It's more than enough for a woman in her 80s. Thank you for watching, and see you next time soon.